Yeah, I'm a little confused with where Cotto is and his power. Before I even get into that, are you struggling at all with the fact that this is being considered it was being considered a middleweight championship fight until the WBC stepped in and stripped Cotto of his belt for not paying the sanctioning fee. Canelo can still win the belt, but I'm just struggling that's at 160, and both of these guys came in at the contracted weight of 155.
Yeah, I don't like that. And Cotto has said in an interview after, I think it was his last fight, maybe the one before, he basically said, I'm not in the middle. It might have been after he beat Martinez for the title. In a funny way, he can't make 160 in the sense that he can't get there. Kind of like Pacquiao fighting underweight. You'd have to be in atrocious shape to get up to 160. I don't like guys fighting for titles underneath the weight, and I also don't care about those alpha. I'm trying to say it. The alphabet titles one bit. But Cotto is the lineal middleweight champion after beating Martinez, so that elements. So should that change on a fight at 155? I don't think so.
Yeah, like I said, just as I was looking at that today, that really kind of bothered me because when I look at, one of the fights we're going to get into before we get you off of here is Quillin and Jacobs, fighting at 160. And I just don't think Cotto would maybe last 3 or 4 rounds with, at least with Quillin. I'm not sure on Jacobs, but yeah, that's just kind of not sitting well with me. When I looked at it today, that both of these guys, I think even, maybe Cotto even, didn't he weigh in at like 154 or 153 or something? Yeah, he was under. So that just seems, like you said, usually guys are trying to get down to the weight. And here, both of these guys, the fight was contracted. It's a middleweight champ. It was a middleweight championship. That's the way that it was marketed. But then here we are today. The guys are actually coming in at junior middleweight pounds or poundages. So that just kind of threw me off a little bit. To your point, though, Austin Trout, I looked at an article on boxingnewsonline.net just to speak of a couple of guys, a couple of fighters who weighed in on their opinion. And Austin Trout, who did fight both guys, he did mention, I think you kind of touched on it, that Cotto is beat up. He swells easily and has a lot of scar tissue. So if he does take a lot of damage early on, that's something that could at least result in him looking the worst between the two fighters later in the rounds. But Austin Trout took Canelo to win. Andy Lee, another middleweight. He actually went with Cotto just based on experience, his jab, and then his boxing ability. Joe Calzaghe, Chris Eubanks Jr., and Carl Froch all came in for Canelo based on his youth, being a stronger fighter. And then Eubanks commented on that Canelo was more built for middleweight, or closer to a middleweight actually, than what Cotto is. And then Froch just said on youth and strength too. So like I said, I believe it's going to be a pretty entertaining fight. And I basically have to appreciate a guy like Cotto fighting some guy 10 years his junior and accepting that challenge.
He has not many physical advantages in the fight. It's the kind of fighter he is. You gotta respect him for it. People will criticize him for the catchweight because obviously that's what he wanted in the fight. I won't criticize him for the catchweight. Just the titles probably shouldn't be a mistake, and one of them isn't for him at this point anyway. I think we'll see Canelo fighting at middleweight regularly in the coming years as he gets a little older. I think he's built for that more.
I remember when Canelo fought Floyd, and one of the things that he kept referencing as a mistake was fighting at the catchweight. Do you think that him fighting at a catchweight in this fight maybe will have some sort of mental effect on him, or could possibly have some kind of outcome on the fight, since that was his chief complaint about fighting Floyd?
Yeah, maybe that was part of it. Maybe that was part of the strategy. I don't know if he had a hard time making weight, and that could be a big difference in this fight too. He's generally made 154. I don't know that he would have had a hard time. It doesn't help him in any way. The guy's a pro. He's got 47 fights. I think he'll be able to put it out of his head, but it certainly doesn't help him in any way. I like Trout's opinion on the fight actually more than most, even since he's fought both guys in some more recent years.
Last question. Go ahead.
No, I just said I was jumping back to what we were talking about a minute ago, but I think that Trout has some interesting insight into these guys.
Yeah, I thought his opinion was pretty spot on. So everybody, let's move on from this. We'll go around the table here, starting with Brandon. What's your prediction on this Cotto-Canelo fight?
I'm actually going with Cotto. Some of the different people that I've read from, some of the different people on the outside of boxing, they were talking about they think Canelo is slower, bigger, slower, and predictable. And if that is in fact what he comes to the ring with, which I do believe that he has that you can kind of prepare and kind of get it. I don't think it's anything new. I don't think he's going to come in there and do something new. And with a better corner and a more experienced fighter, I think if Canelo can't do something in the first 2-3 rounds, I believe he'll be frustrated. And I believe that we'll start to see the lethargic Canelo that we saw against Floyd. That's what he was saying was the catch weight. He said he couldn't throw the combinations. He didn't have the speed. He didn't have the energy. And I'm reading some of the different experts say that they thought he was slow. And I'm thinking James Kirkland has no movement except forward. Some of the guys that he's looked his best against had no movement at all, and we've seen Cotto even in close with a reach disadvantage in close that boxing. I always remember when Shane Mosley, that was the first thing he said. He said that guy can box. He said I didn't expect at all to get outboxed like that. Shane even was able to catch Floyd with a powerful shot during their fight, and against Cotto he just got abused. So I don't know. I think Cotto has more than what people are expecting, and that I think Canelo has fought a few people. He fought a few boxers that were kind of slick. He fought Lara, but Lara didn't box. Lara ran. Right. So had Lara sat down and actually put some of his skill and some of that together, and I could compare it. Other than that, I think besides Trout, I don't know who he is. I mean, I don't know outside of 2 fights that he looked great in, he hasn't looked great in any of his other fights that I've seen. So I don't know that he has the experience against guys that can do what Cotto can do. So you saying Cotto by decision? Decision, yeah. I don't even think the game plan is to try to get the knockout. But I think, the body shots will slow him down, and if he's already slow, he eats the body shots, so now he's even slower. Right. I just think that looks good for Cotto. How do you call it, James?
Well, I think that's a solid prediction, but it wouldn't be any fun if I just agreed. So I think if Cotto,
you said Cotto too?
If Cotto wins, then that's what's going to happen. And I completely agree with a Cotto victory. That's what it looks like. I'm going to go with Canelo. I'm going to be rooting for Cotto. My dog's grabbing in on this one. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So I'm going to go with Canelo. I think what we're going to see, what I'm guessing this is going to look like, is Cotto's going to come out strong. He's going to look really good for the first 5 rounds. He's probably going to win most of those. I think he's going to start to slow down. He's going to start to fade. I don't think Canelo's going to win this one. I think he's going to have enough to break him down. I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I'm gonna say 11th round stoppage for Canelo. I don't know who Austin Trout is either, by the way. He looks great one day. He looks so good recently. I don't know if we know who Cotto is. We talked about the inconsistency of Canelo a little bit. Cotto has looked great since he hooked up with Freddie Roach. Right. But the matchmaking has been careful. Sergio Martinez is a great win for anyone, but he's not the guy who was fighting Paul Williams. Exactly. And, Kelly Pavlik, he wasn't that guy anymore. So we'll find out. We'll find out exactly what he's got left in the tank, and it'll be interesting to see.
That's interesting because Stephen A. actually on his show the other day, he predicted Canelo with an 11th round stoppage, and then even more shocking, B-Hop chimed in with a 9th round stoppage by Canelo. And all up to this point, I've been leaning towards Canelo, but just in talking through this with you guys, I think I'm going to go with Cotto to get a decision and just kind of shock the world and maybe position himself for a rematch with Mayweather for Fight 50. We can move on from that. I like you said, I think the fans win. Guillermo Rigondeaux is also on the card against a Filipino fighter, Drian Francisco, a guy that got the fight on short notice. But I want to take the next 10 or 15 minutes and kind of just run through a couple of random boxing topics. We'll start with what's your thoughts on where we see or who we see getting rewarded with the farewell fight for Manny Pacquiao?
If he doesn't pick it carefully, I'm not sure we're going to see Manny get rewarded. He's coming off a tough injury. You never know what you're going to get coming off an injury like that. If I were him, I would take an easy one and then a farewell fight, but he looks like he's going great for it. So the rumored guys are Terrence Crawford, Amir Khan, or Timothy Bradley. I'm not excited about a Bradley rematch. Neither of those fights were competitive, even though they split them. Amir Khan doesn't excite me too much against anyone. I don't mind watching him. I'm not really excited to see him fight Manny. Terrence Crawford is the guy that I think would be the most interesting fight. You guys think?
Yeah, I think we talked about that on the last show. We definitely would appreciate that one out of the most out of the three. But to your point, I'm kind of I don't know if I like to see Manny fight Crawford first, coming back from this type of injury. I think Crawford is a formidable enough opponent to where you don't want to come in not having any not being 100% confident in what your ability is on fight night. I think if you're not 100%, Crawford is the type of guy that can sense that and jump on you very quickly. And I would just hate to see Pacquiao get overwhelmed by a younger fighter.
Yeah, boxing has a long history of careers ending that way, for sure. And I think Crawford would be the guy to do it to him, especially coming off that kind of injury. Pacquiao at his very best 5 years ago, probably way better than Terrence Crawford is today. Right now, I think that's a very tough fight for him to come back. Here's another one. Here's one that I would like that nobody's talked about. If Cotto wins, that might be a great rematch.
That's a good idea. That only thing is though, now Cotto is also trained by Freddie Roach. So how would they handle that part of it?
Road, I know that's why nobody's talking about it, but I think it'd be a fun fight. They just talked about Provodnikov versus Pacquiao, and Provo is just going to change trainers. I don't know if either of them would want to. I don't know that Cotto would want to do that at this point in his career because Roach is working some magic with him. It won't happen. I just thought it was a fun idea. It was a good fight the first time around. Pacquiao was really in top form. That was probably really the apex of his career when he was just at his highest form. It was probably the night that he just demolished Cotto. And it wasn't like Cotto was bad that night, At this point in their careers, I think it's become a very interesting fight. Cotto's probably better than he was then. Pacquiao's probably not as good. It's a rematch. I think it has a lot of elements, but the trainer is a problem.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a fun fight to explore. Like you said, though, I just couldn't see Cotto moving on, to be under anybody else's tutelage, and I would imagine that Roach's, his allegiance would lay with Pacquiao, being, the amount of time that they've spent together over the years. You mentioned one name that I'm glad I wouldn't want to see it either, but what do you think about Tim Bradley underneath? With now being under trained by Teddy Atlas. I mean, because we saw Tim Bradley that. Right. We saw Tim Bradley that I totally